How do you think the incident that happened at the church that you put out in the tweet is connected to the shelter? How do you know it was from the someone from the shelter that jumped you?
Well, I didn't get jumped. For one, I was able to close the door before anything could happen, and that's why we have the handle on the door. We put it there after the shelter opened because we were having some issues with people trying to get into the church while children's events are going on and things like that. So I don't know that it's directly related to the shelter, to be honest, and I don't think I've never stated that I believe it's directly related. What I do know is since the shelter opened, man, our crime rate's gone through the roof. Violent crime is becoming more normal. Public drug usage is becoming more normal. We hear sirens several times a day coming for overdoses or incidents in the community. That was never a normal thing. So, yeah.
What do you think the province should do, or you've sent a letter to the province. What would you rather want them to do?
Well, in my letter, I highlighted a number of key lessons that we've learned as a community. And I think part of the problem is we have a lot of people talking about us and about this situation, but we live here. So there's the reality that we see things that aren't necessarily reflected in police stats. We see things that are going on that other people are dismissing. To them, they think if there's fewer encampments, the problem's cleaning itself up, but it's not. It's just one very small indicator. In my letter, I was very specific about several criticisms, and I also highlighted several solutions to those criticisms. I want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. I believe, I'm sorry, I've helped over 100 homeless people in this community since that shelter opened. I really respect and love these people. We've helped them with bottles of water and coffee and the odd meal and rides to the hospital and to the mediclinics, and I've even paid for a couple of them to get their prescriptions. We want to see the homeless get the help they really need, not an expensive Band-Aid that really isn't solving problems. And at great expense, not only to the taxpayers, but also to this community at large. I'm not aware of any other community in any city, residential otherwise, that's been required to take so much loss on themselves personally in order to accommodate this.
Would you be able to go into a little bit more detail about the attack that you said you
Well, I mean, your camera's in a good place, so you can see our door is right beside a blind corner. And what had happened was it was 9:45 at night. I had finished teaching a class, and I spent about 40 minutes setting up tables and things like that for the Valentine's date night we were having last night. And I turned off the lights and I was heading out, and just as I opened the door, guy came right around the corner, tried to grab the handle of the door and force his way into the church. And fortunately, because we have a good handle on the inside, I prevented him from being able to grab the door and just close it. So again, this isn't, I guess what I want to say is, it's not the first time I've encountered hostility with people where I've tried to help them. I mean, I've had some knives pulled on me and things like that throughout the year. I always keep a safe distance. So I see it and I know to back off and I leave them alone or call the police if needed. But here, it was just completely unexpected.
And how did you know that person was or could be someone from the shelter? What made you think that?
Well, I don't really think, I have no proof he's from the shelter, and I'm not implying that he is. He was a very large gentleman. He was wearing a jacket, he was wearing a hood, he had his face covered, and he glared at me through the window for a good 15, 20 seconds before I went to call 911, and he turned around and left. So, yeah. But on the other hand, as a church, we've never had that issue here prior to this shelter opening. So is it coincidence? Well, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying we have a lot of issues going on in our community, and that situation the other night it really woke me up to the tune that as much as we're trying to be reasonable and helpful and want to work with the province has never come to work with us. They talk about us, but they don't talk with us. So I think the only way to bring the issue to the forefront is to say that this is a failure, it's not working, and we need to close it as it is, get together, come up with a real solution over this summer so that by winter we can have a real solution for everybody.
So I guess like the $1 million question would be, if not here, where could be a potential location for a shelter?
And you know what? That's the question we've been getting from politicians from day one. And my initial reaction to that is, when did I get elected and have to make that determination? Like, I'm not an expert in this, and I've never professed to be. We've learned a lot in the last year, without a doubt. So, I mean, I'm going by what I've learned in the last year. So where should they go? Well, what we're learning here is this kind of operation, the way it is, doesn't work in any residential community. So we need to go back to the drawing board. The province needs to look at investing in people, finding real solutions that work. And if they can do that and they involve us in it and they want to do something different here, then maybe consult with us first. Maybe talk with us about it first. Because what happened here is we had no due diligence. There was no study done. What happens when a 106 bed shelter opens in a residential community? I'm not aware of any other city in Canada that has that. And you know what? At the end of the day, we weren't even given public consultation. We were told about it after the decision was made, and we're stuck with it. So I'm all for being a part of the solution. I really want to see people get the help they need. But as it stands right now, this can't keep going on. It's unsustainable.
So we just spoke with Tribal Chief Mark Arcand.
Yeah, I heard that there was a...
Yeah, and he's essentially, I guess, saying that, these tweets and this letters, essentially he's calling it an attack on his organization and the Emergency Wellness Center. Just maybe your thoughts on those comments.
Well, you know what? All the way even to this point, I don't attack people, I attack issues. When you attack people, all that happens is you end up in mudslinging and the issues get forgotten. In fact, I would even go so far as to say is this: anybody who reads this letter as an attack and not as a plea for help and a willingness to find real solutions for everybody, they're missing the point.
Sorry, just going through my questions here.
Sure.
Have you seen any changes since October, I believe, is when the shelter stopped taking people with complex needs?
Well, as somebody who lives here, I mean, I live literally 200 meters from the shelter, and I obviously work about the same distance. I don't know that we can say we've noticed a negligible or a significant change. I think the biggest issue when it comes to complex needs is we need a real solution and a long-term solution. We can't just think we're going to open a 15-bed, 24-hour turnaround, right, holding facility and think that's going to solve the problem. Even according to Chief Arcand, about 60% of the people he helps don't want help and are probably complex needs. So we're probably realistically talking at least 300 people in this city alone with complex needs. So, I mean, if there was a place where the police could come, take somebody with complex needs and have a facility to take them that was safe and accountable, I think there's room for discussion in that, absolutely.
Just a follow-up to what was asked earlier. Chief Arcand also called it racism, saying the church has been part of residential schools, colonialism in the past, and now today in the form of racism. This attack is something that he took pretty personally.
Well, I think as we've seen through the last year, Chief Arcand seems to take constructive criticism of anything his organization is involved with personally. And you know what, I have never, in the press, ever really attacked Chief Arcand at all, and I'm not going to start today. What I can say is, when you lump everybody into one big ball and saying that the church as a whole is responsible for the residential schools, well, you know what? Our church wasn't. Our church is a Baptist church. None of the Baptist church were a part of residential schools. Our church, and you can ask people in this community, has a reputation for helping the homeless. People have seen me do it. In fact, from day one, man, the minute we found out this was opening, we thought this was a great opportunity for local outreach. And we contacted, Chief Arcand. I spoke to him personally at the open house, but before that, we sent emails saying, how do we help? How do we come alongside? What do? We want the community involved. And nothing, no response from him at all. So for him to stand here and say, well, the church is the problem, I don't know. And in terms of racism, You know what? My church has Chinese, Indonesian, people from several different African countries, Ukrainians that are here as immigrants, and refugees. I mean, come on. Look around this community. It is filled with people from all sorts of different nations. And you watch people, they talk to each other, they help each other. This is the least racist community I think I could ever imagine. So, again, I live here, Chief Arcand doesn't. So,
Just lastly, you talked about this a bit about where you'd want to see it rather. You said not in a residential neighborhood. I'm not from here, but like, what does that mean? Would it be like outside of Saskatoon? It's outside of or like in an industrial area? Like, would you be okay if it's in Riversdale?
well, you know what? For one, if anything, since this all happened, I've actually gained a real understanding of people in Riversdale, because they've been facing these issues much longer than we have, and they have my utmost respect. We get this notion that these people, meaning the homeless, are being dumped somewhere, and I think that's a terrible analogy. I believe that we need to find safe, secure, responsible locations for them that work for everybody. Can that work here? Well, I know I spoke to an MLA back in the summer that, is it possible this could be turned? Oh, okay.
Do you have batteries?
No, it's okay. All right,
That's
so
okay.
what were we talking about?
Just continue. If you could continue on where you would like to see it, like if not in a residential area, like where?
Well, again, I think the issue comes down to where is a place that is safe and responsible to run these operations. If we have a long-term solution for people with complex needs, and we know that they can be taken care of and out of the residential communities, which I think is the key, then I think there is dialogue to be had. But I know as a church, when we talked to an MLA back in summer about this operation, and I asked, what if we turn this into a facility for homeless families? Because we know they're not a problem in residential communities. The park's right beside there. There's 2 schools very close by in this community, and it works, right? It would probably be a way better model, and I didn't get much feedback on that, so which is unfortunate. And I think that's the problem, is we need to have a lot of dialogue and a lot of discussion and think outside the box and look at the needs. What are the real needs? And I address some of those in my letter. So
That's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you'd like to say that maybe I missed out on or didn't understand?
I just, I never imagined this letter would create so much feedback, and it's good because we need dialogue and we need discussion. And for over a year, we've been sitting here trying to be reasonable and trying to want to be a part of the solution. And now's the time. Let's start talking and let's find the solution, because the homeless deserve far better than what they're getting, and we deserve to have our community restored to what it was. So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you guys.